It's fair to say we started, well, this is a project of transformation, really. That was the underlying strong message in the functional brief. We didn't start with a blank canvas. It was an existing space that must be sort of gloriously conceived in the 70s, and then through the subsequent decades suffered a slow and steady decline into, well, I guess, trying to be kind, but sort of into mediocrity. But what we realised that what was good in the 70s in part was still there, which was they had tried to preserve access to daylight and views. And what was taken away, we took our cues from as we sort of analysed the past. And that was this really strong attention to detail and quality of the materials used. And that all sort of served to form back then a unique and special gathering place in Melbourne, which we wanted to sort of make sure we honoured that. And as a nod to the past, it must be, we just as a little aside, we did keep some of the existing terrazzo flooring in the centre space, just as our nod of respect to the original design.
So Terminal 2, for those who are unaware, is situated between Terminals 1 and 3. And so over the years, there's been sporadic and incremental expansions. This has led to limiting capacity through the arrivals hall. And so the existing primary exits that were split either side of the reclaim hall created pinch points and congestion pinch points throughout the space, which caused many issues during peak hours. The facade was lined with retail units and back painted glass, so there was lack of connection to the outside and limiting use of daylight through the space. So what this led us to do is just trying to inform some of the thinking through to our design approach. But this also was limited both horizontally and vertically, so we were unable to extend above through to the operating departures drive elevated road that sits there, but also the operating forecourt and pickup facilities at the airport. This formed part of the brief for 3 major moves. Move 1 was a connection through to Terminal 3. This allowed us to create and open up some of those pinch points, but also create for passenger comfort and orientation through to the space. Also connection through from the arrivals level through to departures, which before wasn't there. Move 2 was the key move to maximise the depth in the central area of the arrivals hall. This gave us the opportunity to create more of a public and civic function in the hall, but also reconfigure and realign some of those retail units, open that space up and add additional use of clear facades. Some subtle moves that we did through the design process was slightly cutting back some of the lower roof areas to open up that clear story to try and get a maximum depth of daylight through to the space, but also create that connection to the outside visually from the hall for both arriving and meeters and greeters. This small animation here takes those big moves and applies the reality to the project. And as you can see through the animation, there was a forensic approach that we had to take with our consultants to try and scoop out some of this incremental existing infrastructure to try to create more of a legible and clear space for passengers and people to use and to orientate themselves through. It also gave us the opportunity to upgrade amenities and potential retail units in the hall. So moving forward from this T3 node area connection here was some of the retrofit work that we did within the existing arrivals hall. So that was opening up the centralized area, creating a waiting area, as you can see on the screen, but also create the opportunity for essentially some drama in this space, an element of sense of place and identity. But not to take away from the complexities of the site, knowing we have got an operating airport that we're building in at the moment, and we're unable to change those operating limitations during construction.
We thought it was important too to declutter the approach to the arrivals hall, and that we sort of have a legible, strong sense of, I guess, front door address. We did that by forming these oversized openings into our brand new curtain wall facade, crowning these openings with a portal of anodized aluminium in champagne gold, backlit for effect, and sort of stripping out all the extraneous material that sort of had formed there over the decades.
And using the facade also as an opportunity as a backdrop to some of these interventions within the space, again, focusing on detail and craft within the hall and celebrating and expressing these kind of these kit apart. So the mullions that allow the facade to be set off from the framing was a twin plated system held in by some stainless steel billets in the space. This was used both on arriving and departing levels. And moving through into the extended hall into the T3 node, once inside, you're greeted with the timberline walls and soffit. We wanted to make sure that we evoke some softened edges and subtle curves, which can be found through the space to help in the fluidity of people moving through the hall. It's also good to know that the Soffit design and the kind of the canvas in which we've set the design up here was a combination of plasterboard, timber and aluminium panels. A tremendous amount of care and craft were put into these, albeit the ultimate execution was quite simple. But working in an airport, there's a significant amount of services, access panels, and so on and so forth. So creating that kind of simple but legible approach to the design. But we were acutely aware that passengers and people will be brushing up close and personal to some of these materials. So really celebrating these moments of dwell with much more warmer palette with the timbers and the cementitious board of the equitone that we've used there, but also using some of those subtle curves. But the natural light flooding through from above and the wash of the specialist lighting through the hall. And part of our move too was that connection, that visual connection through to the outside. And it's probably the first time in 40 years that you're able to see trees in the arrivals hall. But this we felt was really great in terms of the kind of the natural grain that you've got with the timber, but also through to the clear facade outside. But our role didn't physically stop in the interiors and the architectural package. We also contributed to the furniture design. And so what you can see here is a Grimshaw design bench seat in collaboration with Techno. This was ergonomically driven, but also allows for 21st century Bluetooth charging and so on and so forth. So it started to celebrate some of those that metalwork that we're using within the hall.
1 minute remaining.
So some of the details and craft went in through the space, and as you can see, we've expressed that and celebrated that in some of the finishes that we've got into the timber here. But the crescendo within the hall was the Melbourne wall. Again, this working closely with Bureau North, working through to integrate this into a CNC milled system. Again, complex in appearance, but it was down to one drawing and one parametric spreadsheet that was used to construct this.
We thought this is important. Not so much as a billboard. The letters are formed from the spotted gum. And we thought the hall is such a place of high drama where people are brought together after those traumatic moments, getting through customs and waiting there for such a long time. And we thought it was important that as a signpost formed of the material to again reinstate this as what it was and what it should be, and hopefully what it is now, a unique and special public gathering space for Melbourne. Thank you.